Two Guys in the Dark.
This story happened last year. I was with my uncle at the time. It was about 1 or 2 in the morning, and we were walking the dog, a Labrador, and my uncle's huge wolf dog. As we were walking down the road, we saw a guy wearing only gray pants, nothing on the top, and having headphones on. His eyes were painfully wide open, but he had no expression on his face. My uncle noticed him and became aware, and I also kept an eye on him. He followed us, and we stopped because my uncle got very angry with that stalker. And then the stalker stopped too, and went towards the house, and then eventually inside, but didn't unlock any doors, so the house wasn't his. We walked faster, and then he got out, but slowly walking right behind us with bigger steps. He eventually stops and stands in the middle of the small road surrounded by houses. The dogs were completely ignoring him. We finally got to the house without him following us, but it doesn't stop there. In the summer of 2018, I was talking with my uncle and he told me that he saw the guy in the news, and there have been several reports of him stabbing and raping women. The scariest part is that this psycho knew where we lived.
I dated a girl in high school. We lost our virginity to each other. Once we started having sex, she started getting very possessive. She tried to ban me from hanging out with my friends, wanting me to spend all of my free time with her. So after a few months of this, I broke up with her. That's when the crazy really started. She started showing up at my house, just standing outside, then showing up everywhere that I went. Then she had her mother call me, text me when we were supposed to get married, and because we had sex. Then she scratched at my car, threatened to kill herself if we didn't get back together. It had gotten so bad that my mother called the police a few times. I tried to get a restraining order. Anyways, after a year of this, I gave up. We got married and now have 2 kids. Joking. It finally ended when she tried to attack me in a mall parking lot. I knocked her out defending myself. Apparently her mother told her that I was no good, because a man would never hit a woman, ever. So never have sex with crazy people. It'll be the worst thing that you ever do. When I was a freshman in college in October of 2018, a guy I'll call Ron Jones stalked me. I met Ron through one of our mutual friends, Chris, because they were in a school club together. When I met Ron, I thought he was kind of strange, but he was nice and seemed interesting. He claimed to be Slavic and had an accent to back that up. I just thought he might be weird because of cultural differences. I go to school in a rural, southern area, and I figured the cultural shock between here and wherever he was originally from was a lot to handle. Anyway, we exchanged numbers and texted infrequently for a couple of weeks. On October 3rd, 2018, a friend of mine and I went to a drag show on our campus. We weren't out super late, but it was dark when the show ended, and we began walking back to our dorm. I'd been texting Ron a bit during the night because he was unable to get a ticket to the drag show, and he wanted to know how it was. At some point in the conversation, I mentioned that I wanted to grab some orange juice on the way back to my dorm. Don't know why I mentioned that to him. I think I was just making some conversation. My friend and I stopped in a convenience store near our building so that I can get said orange juice, and Ron was already there. He said something about buying the juice for me, and I thanked him, but declined. He got kind of mad and started to walk away, which was odd to me, but I just let it go. My friend and I walked out of the store, and I saw that he was standing outside. Our dorm was actually right across from the building the convenience store was in, so he saw us enter the building. My friend and I parted ways, and I walked up to my dorm room, which was on the 2nd floor of the building facing the convenience store. I kick myself for doing this now, but I went to my window, opened it, and yelled down to Ron when I saw that he was still standing there. I apologized for declining his offer to buy the juice for me because I felt like I had been rude. He stood below my window and started talking to me about random stuff. And at one point, he said something that was odd. He was like, "Can I flirt with you? I enjoy doing that." And I just laughed and said, okay, because I had no clue how to respond to that. And I just figured that he was flirtatious. Stupid, I know, but that's not the dumbest thing that I did. I ended up going outside to sit and talk to Ron for a little bit because I felt bad for being rude earlier. While we were outside, he didn't say anything of note, and he was acting pretty normal. It got cold out, so he asked if he could go inside to talk. I told him sure. At this point in the year, I'd had several guy friends over to my room just to work and chat, so I didn't see an issue with it, and things started out normally, but they quickly got scary. Out of nowhere, Ron basically turned into a different person when we were alone in my room. He stopped blinking, he held eye contact super intensely, and he was laughing in this really low, creepy way. On top of that, his Slavic accent disappeared. That's when he told me that he had lied about being Slavic, and he's native to the state our college is in. He got increasingly more creepy, and there was nothing I could do about it because I had a single room my freshman year. At one point, he grabbed me in a hug and wouldn't let go of me until I said, "Let go of me, right now," 3 times or so to him. He told me that he'd done a lot of bad things, and that if I wanted to put him in jail, he would give me the names of people who have evidence against him. He said he hates Jews and blacks and everyone until they give him a reason not to hate them. He said a lot of weird, nearly sexual stuff to me as well. Like he went on and on about how showering alone isn't fun, and that it's better with another person, and that he'd be willing to do that if I wanted to. He even said he'd go after me if he weren't dating someone, which freaked me out. He asked if he could sleep in my room, and I said no, and I used that to tell him that I was ready for bed and that he needed to leave. As he left, he said, "Do you want to know how unsecure the locks on your door really are?" He also pulled out a few IDs out of his wallet, all with different names. I closed the door on him and looked through the peephole. He stood there looking at the door for an uncomfortably long time before leaving. After that, he called me multiple times throughout the month, always at weird times. He started appearing everywhere I was around campus. The friend who had introduced us, Chris, actually started walking everywhere with me because he noticed Ron would follow me around, lurking around every corner when I couldn't see him. Apparently he was around me a lot more than I realized because Chris began carrying a knife whenever he went to places. Ron was everywhere, and he would come up to me and put his arm over me, whisper stuff like, "We need to talk," whenever he saw me. For a while he would lurk outside my dorm, but that stopped all of a sudden one day. I later found out that Chris had told my RA about Ron, and that he had been banned from my building. I hadn't done that stuff myself because I thought I was overreacting. I really wasn't. I blocked him on my phone, and he hasn't contacted me since. He did apologize to me one day on campus last semester when we ran into each other, and I was actually willing to accept it and move on until recently. So here I am, 2 years later, and everything that happened with Ron has come back up again. I found out recently that he has a history of stalking women, like an extensive history of going back to at least 5 years. I met another victim of his who he stalked before coming to my university. She had gone to community college for a little bit, and he stalked her while he was also a student there. He followed her to our university after apparently being suspended from the school after 3 separate stalking incidents were linked to him. The victim I met told me something worrying. Ron is currently an RA on our campus, and she was one of his residents. When she told the residential office that Ron had stalked her in the past, they told her all they could do was have her move dorms, which she did. They then said that they couldn't do anything to discipline him because the stalking didn't occur at our university. She and I both reported our experiences with him to the residential office, who then tipped off the campus police, who then spoke to the dean of students. The thing is, though, when I gave his name to the residential office, they had no idea who I was talking about. He'd even given me a fake first and last name, and I had to do a lot of searching to find out his real name. I knew he was sketchy when I saw the 4 separate IDs in his wallet, but I didn't even think he'd given me a fake name when I met him. After talking to residential living, I talked to the police. When I talked to the police, they didn't seem to care about what I had to say. Actually, the officer that I spoke to talked over me while I was explaining the times he followed me, and said that he'd heard all he needed to hear. I spoke to the dean of students, who asked me some clarifying questions about the police report he'd received. The police had mixed up several details of my story with the stories of other victims. Apparently more people than just myself and the girl that I met have come forward with information about this person. There are even reports that he got physical with 2 separate people before coming to this university. Last week I saw him on campus. He's still an RA, even though multiple women have spoken to higher-ups about his behavior. If I hear from him, I'm issuing a no-contact order to ensure that he stays away from me. Right now, though, that feels like too much of a hassle because we're all going home for a 2-month break due to COVID education anyways. That's kind of it. It's pretty anticlimactic, and there's no sense of justice in all of this. But hopefully this story teaches you all to stay on your toes, and not to think that you're overreacting when someone is being sketchy. Stay safe out there, guys. I was in middle school, 8th grade, when Formspring.me became popular. It's just one of those anonymous question-asking websites for those who don't know about it. Anyways, I had one of those, and one day, I think it was Monday specifically, I started getting these creepy submissions saying stuff like, "I watch you going down the fucking street after school all the time. You're so beautiful. I want to rape you so badly." Stuff like that. But at this point, it's kind of just weirded me out. I didn't think too much about it, since it was likely a friend of mine just screwing with me. So I took down my Formspring site and went about my day. The next day, I started receiving really creepy emails from someone that I didn't know. They started to get really creepy, mentioning my teachers' names, asking me to meet them at the park so that they could rape me, counting down the days that I would die, which was Friday, and describing in detail about how he would rape me, then kill me, kill everyone else that was with me. So I started getting really freaked out, blocked the emails. But whoever this was realized this, and started making new emails to send to me every day. Every day he would count down the days until Friday, until my supposed death. I really didn't want to tell my parents about this, since I still thought that it was maybe a joke. But I ended up breaking on that Wednesday after my school administration did nothing about it. They kept me in from school on Thursday, and on Friday. They even called the police. The police eventually found out it was just some random quiet kid in my math class, who I've never even talked to, nor had mutual friends with. This was probably the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, just because the emails were so descriptive, and because the kid was just some random guy that I didn't know at all. I was so young, and all of my friends never took it seriously. I really couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat, and I was always shivering, from fear, I guess. Thinking about it makes me really uncomfortable. My first serious boyfriend stalked me for about 5 years after I broke up with him. The reason that I broke up with him is because I noticed him becoming increasingly possessive and controlling. This worried me a lot, and I was really young. He was older than me, so I decided to just get out of it. The breakup itself was brutal. He cried, screamed, and begged. Initially after the breakup, his behavior seemed like the harmless actions of a bitter ex, constantly texting and phone calls, sending gifts to my workplace, that sort of thing. After about 6 months, when this hadn't died down, I started bumping into him on my way home from work, or if I was out shopping, so that I ended up moving. I couldn't leave my job immediately, but moving houses didn't make a difference anyways. This behavior continued for a few years. His behavior became increasingly worse. The police were very reluctant to do anything about it. I moved every 6 to 9 months. I even changed jobs twice, but somehow he always managed to just track me down. I didn't use social media, and even insisted friends of mine not take any pictures of me just in case they posted them on social media. I kept my phone number within my circle of friends. Somehow he always managed to get my new number. I ended up a paranoid wreck, thinking that one of my friends had betrayed me, or that my phone company had me listed in a phone book, and all other kinds of crazy thoughts. Then another year had passed. As our encounters had gotten worse, again, I'd rather not go into detail. I decided to report him to the police once again, and this time they took some action. At this stage, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't concentrate at work. I was a shell. After 2 months after I had reported him to the police, I woke up one morning to a story in the newspaper about staff in the National Tax Office using resources improperly. My ex was the main perpetrator, using his job to access all of my information. In his job, he had access to my tax records, which meant every time I changed job addresses or my phone number, he had access to most up-to-date information on me. Before the court case began, he committed suicide. I'm not ashamed to say that I cried with relief. These were the worst years of my adult life, after all. My stalker ex had leaked pictures of me in my underwear, but that scarily was not the craziest thing that he did to me. One time I was home alone. I used to rarely lock the doors. I happened to live with my mother at the time, so I went for a shower, completely unaware that I was in danger. I finished with my shower when I noticed a presence. Someone was under my bed. I knew that I didn't have time to run to the bathroom. I picked up the phone, called the police. Luckily, the operator knew that I wasn't pranking her, and she acted like I was calling my mom so he wouldn't know that I was calling the police and do something crazy, so he would think that I would just be alone. "Mom, are you close? I might need you to come pick something up." "Ma'am, have you contacted the wrong person?" "Mom," I asked, "are you close by? I need help with something." "Ma'am, are you unable to talk, but need help?" "Yes, Mom. Can you tell me your address?" "You'll need to put your name and street name and number on the envelope, Mom." "Thank you, ma'am. I'll send help immediately." The second I put down the phone, he got up from underneath the bed. I tried not to show him that I was scared of him. "We need to talk," he told me. "Look, I don't want to disturb you, but did you get my letter?" "Yes, I need some time to think about it. Would you like some tea?" I forced a smile and waited for the police to come, hoping that they would come really quick. Sure enough, someone had knocked on my door. When I opened up the door, I couldn't stop my tears, and barely stopped myself from hugging the police officers. I explained to them the situation while my ex claimed that I was lying. They searched him, found a knife concealed in his pocket, and a Beretta, so they charged him with carrying a weapon that he didn't have a license for, and for trespassing. He did some time in state prison, and now I have a restraining order against him. I never go to sleep before I check under the bed and make sure that every door is locked.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.